Welcome to the 21 Convention, Miami, Florida 2016. And this speaker is one of the most amazing guys that I love to watch. Super, super good friend of mine, man. But let me just tell you, as a teacher of social dynamics for many years, and watching somebody else who is such an excellent teacher, but also change in his own life and grow, that to me is what a leader does. I'm about to bring on stage a super cool guy. I hang out with him all the time in Austin, Texas. His name is Nick Sparks, and let's rock it.
Thanks, Steve.
You got it.
Hey, guys. It's good to be here. I'm really, really, really excited to be here. You know I love this convention. I love getting to hang out with all the speakers. Getting to talk, getting to spend some time together. I'm really excited to hang out with all of you. For any new guys, if you see me anytime this weekend, please, like, you want to talk to me, you have a question, don't hesitate, say hi. That's what I'm here for all weekend. I'm just really excited, and yeah, we're doing good things, the speakers. So my speech today is called Why Falling in Love Sucks. And I was probably more nervous about this speech than probably any other speech I've given on this stage. I've been doing this a while, and I'm always nervous when I'm standing up here speaking. I don't know if that's ever going to go away. But before the speech, leading up to it, I was really more nervous about this one in particular. I was talking to Sock about this last night. And one of the main reasons why is because all the other speeches I've given, I had rehearsed that stuff hundreds of times with guys I'd worked with clients, fine-tuning it, saying something different every time, seeing what works better, seeing what doesn't, seeing what's more effective. I was really insanely comfortable with that material. I did it in my sleep. This stuff, I've never actually delivered it all together like this, maybe a random conversation here or there, but all together like this at once. So I'm not as comfortable with it. And Socrates asked me, right after I said that, he asked me, well, why are you doing it? Why are you delivering this speech on this topic today? And I really didn't hesitate when I answered him. The answer was, because this is something that's very personal for me. I got the idea for this speech just this past January or so. And it's really not coincidental that that's the time when I came up with this speech idea, because that is also the time that I had my last really not so great breakup. Right? And this one wasn't my first breakup. We'd only been together for 6 months or so. Right? By this point, I'd been through this so many times. I was pretty much an expert at knowing when things were starting to get a little unhealthy, cutting it off, taking care of myself, rebounding. I could deliver a speech on that. Maybe I will. But I'd gone through that process so many times I was really good at it. But this time it really hit me particularly hard, because this was already a pattern I had repeated so many times in my life. Right? I'd like to see if anybody in here can relate to the same pattern. So I'm going to do something, right? I'm going to start to describe this pattern as I've experienced it. And if you can relate to it, just want you to raise your hand. All right, if I go on and I start talking about something that you can't relate to as much, go ahead and take your hand down, okay? I'll try to not drag this on too long so you're not holding your hand up. So first of all, first step of the pattern, right? I'm out there, I'm single, meet a girl, meet a woman, we have this connection, we have this spark, we have this chemistry, everything's great, right? Honeymoon phase. Everything's perfect, butterflies, sunshine, I feel incredible, right? Who's been there? All right, got most of us, Keep your hands up, because we're going to keep going with this. So next step, put your hand down if you can no longer relate to this pattern, right? Next step, all of a sudden things start getting kind of crappy in the relationship. You start fighting about nothing, really, arguing, resentment builds. It starts to drain you more and take more away from you, right? We've all been there. Keep your hands up if this still relates to you. Great. I'm going to try to make this fast. My hand's getting tired. to, right? Then comes the crappy breakup, right? Leaves you pretty low, leaves you pretty rough, hurts both people, messy situation, right? That's like on a good time, you just kind of break up and it sucks. Bad stuff happens, maybe one of you, both of you cheats, right? A lot of pain, a lot of suffering. We've all been there, right? Then you're low, then you've got to claw and drag yourself, build your confidence back up, brick by brick, heal yourself, mend from those wounds, right? And start all over again. Say, all right, I'm ready again. I'm ready to find somebody new, right? I see pretty much everybody that's done that first one is now still has their hands up. I don't think anyone who raised their hand initially put their hand down through that entire. You can put your hands down now, right? But why is that? Why did we all keep our hands up? We all fell in love, right? Like, I've been taught by movies my entire life that when you fall in love, that's the happily ever after we've all been waiting for. Why is it that we still all had our hands up for the rest of the crap? Why wasn't that all of our happy ending right then and there? So I've been through this pattern more than most people. 7 or 8 times probably in my life, give or take. And like I said, after time, you think you're going to do something different, right? I'm not going to date that kind of person again, right? I'm going to pick somebody different next time. It's not going to be like the last one. It's going to be different. And then it happens again. But okay, I learned, but now I know. Now I know differently. I'm going to do something different this time. And then it happens again. So like I said, by this last time, it really hit me hard. You start to question, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I get this right? So like I said, this speech is one that's very personal for me. And so here I was last January, right? Seeing this pattern in my life, wanting to break it, trying different things, trying to change it. And I've got to, there's got to be something I'm missing. There's got to be something I'm doing wrong. What is it? It had to be one thing. There was only one other thing that I hadn't looked at yet. There was one other thing that I hadn't questioned. But it couldn't be that thing. There's no way, because once again, I've been told my entire life that this was the greatest thing in the universe. Right? This was the ultimate happy ending. This was the ultimate happily ever after. It couldn't possibly be this thing, right? But I was out of options. I had nothing else left, so I started examining, right, this thing. Before we go any further, if you are reasonably intelligent, if you have a logical brain whatsoever right now, you're probably looking at me, or you should be looking at me, and asking yourself, Nick, you clearly have not had the most ideal relationship history. I think you've made that point abundantly clear. Why the hell should we listen to you give a talk about relationships? That's a good question, right? It's really tough for me to fault that logic right there. Not claiming to be a relationship expert. However, as I mentioned, I've been through this process more than most people. I've been through the pain, I've been through the hurt, I've been through all of that more than most people. So I may not know better than anyone what to do, but, however, I know better than most people what not to do. I'm basically an expert on what not to do when it comes to relationships. So we're also going to be talking about the things to do, because I've done a lot of research on that. But I'm standing up here today because if you can take something from my experience, if you can go through half of the painful experiences that I've been through and hurt half of the amount of people in return as I have, right? I feel pretty happy about where this is all going. So we're going to go ahead and move on to talk about this whole phenomenon of love. I'm saying it sucks, right? What is this thing that we're talking about that sucks? Before we even jump further, I want to take a minute to define what is this thing, right? When I say falling in love sucks, what do I mean specifically? What is this falling in love? phenomenon. You may recall from your middle school social studies books that the Greeks had 3 different words for love. Anybody recall that? Middle school social studies? Yeah, right? You had friendly love, called philia. Pretty sure it's philia, might be mispronouncing that, but you had friendly love, right? Also familiar, family, right? You care about this person. You would do anything for them. You've always got their back. You're always going to be there for them, right? Love. We know what that is. We've experienced that at some point or another with someone at least, right? Then you've got agape, right? Agape. I'm pretty sure that's how I pronounce it. Agape. This was the most revered form of love. The philosophers of the day kind of put this one on a pedestal, said it was the most spiritually, the highest spirit, most virtuous, the best, essentially. And this was that deep, connected partnership that 2 people can share. It combines the friendly love, the philia, right? It also has a romantic component. It's built over years and years. It's one of the deepest, most beautiful, at least considered by those Greek philosophers, the deepest, most beautiful spiritual connections in the entire universe. Right? So when I say falling in love sucks, that's not what I'm talking about. Neither one of those are awesome. Those are some of the best things in the entire universe. That's not what I'm talking about, right? The Greeks had a 3rd word for love. And is these 3 words for love? Actually 3 words for 3 different things, and they actually had 3 words for them, and we only have 1. Now, so the 3rd one, the one we're talking about today, good old eros. Eros. That primal, physical, butterflies spinning, millions of songs and sonnets and poems have been written about it, right? Eros. He's kind of a little more gritty, right? He's not the clean, virtuous like his siblings over there. Good old Eros, right? What is this phenomenon? What happens when we fall in love, otherwise known as infatuation, sometimes called lust? What's actually going on in this process where everything's perfect in the world and you found the most amazing, perfect human being you could ever find for yourself in your life, right? Fortunately, we have few scientific advances that the Greeks didn't. We can look at the brain, the body, what's happening when somebody's falling in love. And the main thing, there's a whole lot, heart beating faster, I don't know, sweaty palms and all that, but the main things that happen that cause all this is your brain gets hit, and adrenaline. They're 2 pretty powerful compounds, right? Dopamine, everything's beautiful and I love everything. Adrenaline, I'm fearless. I was going to make a drug allegory there, but I don't think I need to. It's a hell of a drug, essentially, is what I'm saying, right? This chemical burst, if you could package this, it would be the most popular drug in the world by 1,000,000 times over, right? It's a lot of fun. It's one of the most pleasurable, enjoyable experiences in the world. But that's all it is. It's simply a chemical reaction in your brain that creates this magnetic, crazy attraction connection with somebody else, right? A lot of evolutionary scientists like to talk about why we have this chemical reaction to certain people, certain times. Undecided, nobody knows for sure, we can't say for sure, but the most popular theory is that, well, it's for mating. This is for procreation, for making human beings and continuing our species and growing our species. And it makes sense that this theory has gained popularity because usually the amount of years that these feelings last kind of correlate to the amount of time that a child needs to be heavily dependent on their parents before the village tribe can kind of take over and start having a more helping hand in the development. Once again, I don't know for sure. That's kind of the theory of why we have this crazy physiological reaction to people, right? That's all it is. It's a little baby-making phenomenon that we put on a pedestal and say, this is the greatest thing in the universe, this is the greatest happily ever after, but it's not, right? And it's not just that, oh my God, I'm so attracted to this person's such a physiological match for me that I'm having this reaction, because we're human beings. I talk a lot in my book about that natural attraction that two living things can feel for each other and the sensations in the body and the chemistry and the connection, right? But as human beings, if we were just, monkeys, right? It would just be primarily, oh, okay, I feel like my genes are a good match for your genes. We'd make healthy offspring. We're feeling this crazy dopamine adrenaline thing. Let's go to it, right? But human beings are more complicated than that because we've got these things. We've got our brains also getting involved and also influencing these feelings and influencing this phenomenon. And it does so in two major ways. Our brain really gets involved in this process in two major ways. One, past triggers. Past triggers. And I know that triggers is kind of almost a little bit of a trigger word around here. Let me explain what I mean by triggers. When I say triggers, I don't mean, oh my God, this thing is triggering an unpleasant feeling, it needs to be censored. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, oh my gosh, this thing is triggering an unpleasant feeling. This is an excellent opportunity to learn a little bit more about what's going on, learn a little bit more about myself. So that's what I'm talking about here. The thing is, though, certain people will trigger some emotions from our past, right? Maybe it was that girl, the first girl you had a crush on, like back in elementary school, that you completely forgot, but she wears her hair the way that she wore her hair, right? Maybe there's a sense of humor that reminds you of your best friend back in middle school. Still completely subconscious, right? Maybe there's like a warm, nurturing aspect that reminds you of the nurturing you got from your mother, and that feels good, that feels comforting, right? Maybe they're more aloof and more kind of emotionally held back and withdrawn, like the stereotypical father was, and it reminds us of that like form of connection we had with a father, right? Guys, girls, we're all triggered by these different things, and that factors into that emotional, chemical response that we have to these people. Right, the other big factor that our brain brings into play, superficial stimulation, right? We all know it. You could be standing next to this woman and she could just be an awful person and every single signal in your body is screaming, get away from this person, I don't like her, right? She's not nice. She's not a nice person. I don't feel comfortable around her. But she's really hot though, so, right? Superficial stimulation. Right? For guys, it's usually, well, man, she's hot. For women, hot definitely works too, but it also tends to trend towards, taking care of, comfort, financial stuff. These things are issues we're going to talk about really quick, but when the more these two things come into play, the more these human parts of our brain come into play and influence us, right? The more the negatives start to pop up in this falling in love. Once again, I know the name of my speech is Falling in Love Sucks, but it's fun. It's a really enjoyable experience, and it can be a very positive, growth-oriented, enjoyable experience. But the more our brains get in the way and the more we start doing these other things, the more these sabotaging, negative, unhealthy, toxic patterns start emerging. And it can be one of the most destructive, hurtful, painful experiences in your life. So why does falling in love suck? Well, because the way we look at it and the way we treat it. So let's look a little bit more deeply on some of the problems that arise when these feelings are taking over, when we're emotionally compromised, when we're not thinking clearly, and we found our one true love, right? So once again, the more you're being triggered by this person from stuff from the past, the more you're superficially stimulated by them, the more these things are going to come out. So number one, you ignore red flags. That's the big one right there. Right? If this was a person that you didn't have that chemical response to, and they said something like they're saying, like if it's a guy saying something super douchey or a woman saying something kind of mean, you would say, that person, like, I don't like them. They're not the kind of person I want to associate with very much. But you're getting hit by those chemicals. Oh, they're nice. I know them. They're not that bad. I know what they really mean. They're just joking. They're cool. Don't pay any attention to that. You're telling your friends, oh, he doesn't mean it. She doesn't mean it. She's cool, right? We ignore these red flags that we would otherwise be all over, but when those chemicals are rushing through our brain, we are not thinking clearly, right? This is why I think superficial stimulation, yes, superficial stimulation is big when it comes to ignoring red flags. This is why I've drastically changed my priorities when it comes to dating, right? As much as so many guys say, yeah, we want a good person, we want a great person, right? A lot of us still have that, but I want a hot person first, right? A lot of women say, I want a great guy, I want a nice guy, I want an awesome guy. Yeah, but he better have that paper going on, right? Where are our priorities really lying in dating? And I've changed for me drastically, because I found when like attractiveness was really my top priority, I would be much more likely to ignore that other stuff. Maybe not a great person, whatever, right? But when I prioritize that other stuff, when I prioritize those kind of deeper things, right? I'm not going to write off attractiveness. It's not like, oh my God, she's so awesome. Come on, I'm going to force myself to be attracted to her. Like, you can't look past that. You can't trick yourself into being attracted to her the way that you can trick yourself into thinking that she's a great match for you. Does that make sense? Ignoring red flags, right? The other thing people do is they're not really dating each other when these chemicals are hitting their body. They're really dating fantasy versions of each other. What do I mean by this? Right? First of all, when you are love struck, right? You want to put your best foot forward out there. You're more likely to embellish who you are, to only put out the most positive sides. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but when we're hiding parts of who we are, that can start to snowball into real problems really fast. And we'll get to that more in a second. But the other person, right, they're doing that too. They're putting out this idealized versions of themselves. And at the same time, this comes in especially when we're triggered. We're not seeing, again, the person who they are. We're seeing our fantasy version. We have this fantasy version of how she looks or how they act or who this person is. And often at times when we're getting hit by this, we're not seeing the other person. We don't want to see the reality of the person. We want to see our fantasy. There's a specific title for this. It's called the white knight phenomenon. It was named because it was initially identified in women, where women, when they're really young and maybe they're going through some bad stuff, they'll develop this fantasy in their head of this knight who's going to come and save them. Watching movies, this reinforces this thing. And then when they get older, right, they don't realize this is all subconscious, but whenever they meet a man and they start to have this chemical reaction, all of a sudden that fantasy comes back and they imprint that fantasy onto that man. So they're not dating actually him. She's not seeing him. She's seeing that fantasy. Right? Guys do this too. It's not just a female phenomenon, that is for sure. We date the fantasy and we project the fantasy as well. Right? And I believe this is the main reason that fights over nothing happen. Right? Because you're clinging on to this fantasy. This fantasy is the source of your happiness and good feelings. But we're human beings. The other person is going to break from that fantasy eventually. And when they break from that fantasy, suddenly it starts ruptured like, I don't know this person. Who is this person? Wait, it's not what I thought. I believe that it's when these people break from this fantasy we have in our heads, that's when these fights, that's when this resentment builds up in a relationship. That's when these arguments over nothing really tend to happen. Got to be aware of those creating fantasized versions of the other person, putting those fantasized versions out of yourself. That's very closely tied to the next one that happens, bad communication. Not fully sharing, not fully being honest. Not saying something because you're afraid of how the other person's going to react to it, right? You wanted an example of good communication? Really, really, really simple. Example of good communication, your best friend, right? A lot of people call their significant other their best friend. If there's things that you would say to your real best friend, your best guy friend, your best girlfriend, right, that you wouldn't say to your significant other, that's not your best friend. I'm sorry, right? Real communication, not holding back because you're afraid of it's going to mess up the image they have of you, right? Real communication. Another big, big danger that comes in these relationships with this phenomenon, rushed commitment. Rushed commitment. We've only been dating for a month, but man, I'm in love. I'm feeling, I don't want to date anybody else. This is the most amazing I've felt since I can remember. Yeah, sure. Let's do it. Exclusive as all heck. You really know that person. Once again, you know a fantasized version of that person more than you know that actual person. And you rush into this commitment. You commit yourself. Yeah, I know you don't want to see anybody else right now. You usually don't. But you are saying that regardless of what the future holds, and regardless of who else comes along, regardless of what other connections you might experience in the future, you're a 100% person that you want to ignore all of that and stay with this person just because you're having this chemical rush in your brain right now? Rushed commitment, right? So I'm sure that I've seen a lot of nods out there, right? This stuff is common. This stuff is very close, at least, or more common than healthy, like functional relationships. You usually got to go through a few of these before you can have a good one, at least a few of these, right? So I mean, when you look at our relationship stats, right? When you look at failed relationships, divorces, just lack of successful relationships. Haven't they happened? They're wonderful when they happen. I'm not making it sound like it's this unicorn or yeti, because there's a lot of amazing examples of it. But we all know that this stuff is a lot more common. So before we move on, I just want to say, if you can relate to at least two of these things, if you've caught yourself doing it, if this has showed up for you, I highly recommend the book Fixing of Addiction by Pia Mellody. Excellent, excellent book. Goes far more into detail. Talks about anxious relationship types. Talks about dismissive or pushing away. Dating types. Talks about more. It's fascinating, fascinating stuff. All through that book. I can't recommend it enough. But when you see this, we're all familiar with these patterns, and we've all experienced it. When anybody says like, yeah, this is what it is, right? It's not surprising that we have there's a reason why millennials are getting married at a slower rate than any generation ever before. We're terrified of it, right? And I think there is reason to be, because, like I said, it does cause a lot of pain. But, so we're not only here to talk about these red flags to avoid, I want to talk about what you can do instead. I want to give you a game plan so that you do not make these mistakes, you do not run into these traps, right? So now we're going to talk about, we're going to move along. We're going to talk about how to avoid these relationship pitfalls. Number one, with a bullet. And if you've ever seen me speak before, this is usually my number one with a bullet. Awareness. Simply having awareness. Not saying, oh, I'm feeling this rush of chemicals. I'm in love. Everything's perfect. I found my soulmate. Not doing that, first of all. Keeping it in perspective, right? This is fun. I'm going to enjoy this. This is awesome. This is just a drug. This is just a chemical reaction. A fun one, a super fun one, but I'm not going to make it into anything more than it is. I'm going to enjoy it for what it is and not going to assume that this person is now the person I'm meant to be with because of it. Right? I'm going to look at, oh, there's that pitfall. I can see how I'm doing that. Right? I can see how maybe I'm triggered by this person. Maybe I'm liking this superficial thing about them, and it's causing this greater uptick in these behaviors coming from me. Awareness, seeing it, catching it. Right? Next thing, the next big thing, slowing down. Slowing things down. Not saying it's easy, that's for sure. When you have that rush of chemicals, man, you just want to speed everything up. You want to spend every waking second together and have as much sex as you possibly can all the time, right? But the faster you go, less likely you are to catch yourself tumbling down this rabbit hole. I mean, sex too, right? I'm going to say, slow down sex. I know we're human beings. It's really hard to slow down sex. However, it's a very intimate experience. Two human bodies getting as closely spiritually connected as can possibly happen. It's an emotional experience, right? If you're feeling that connection already, you sleep together, all of that stuff is going to skyrocket, and your chances of falling into some of these traps are going to skyrocket. Once again, I'm not saying you're going to be perfect. I'm saying awareness. Notice the effects. Be aware of the effects that your actions have. And be real with what it is, and don't make it into something it's not. Slowing down. this is actually something that I'm very proud of myself for doing recently. Just this past summer, I met a woman, and we had about as strong as one of those connections as I can remember having in a while. I mean, this was intense. This was super, like, I mean, even like on our second time hanging out, we were looking at each other and we were just saying, like, we are so screwed right now because we know exactly where this goes. We know exactly what this is, right? So what did I do though? Because since January now, I've been wanting to do things different. Since January, I've been examining this stuff different, right? So I said, okay, I'm feeling all of this. I'm very excited about this person. We're going to take a week to just, before I see this person again, I'm just going to take a week. I want to see him tomorrow. I want to see him right now this second. We're going to take a week, right? And that week came. I was a little more calmed down. I had a chance to process my emotions before. Started spending more time together. Still fiery as all heck, but I was able to catch red flags a little more. She was kind of an alcoholic, right? So the decision I made in that moment was that I basically friend-zoned her at that time. I saw, yeah, we've got this super hot thing, but I know that if we jump down this path, it's going to turn into a huge blazing tire fire. I can guarantee there's nothing good that can possibly come from this in the long run. So I friend-zoned her. And who knows, you know, maybe we could develop something else like further, but I knew that like that intense, like that was just the fastest highway to hell you could imagine. There was no turning back. That's just like tear off the brakes because this thing's just going downhill and it's not stopping. I jumped out at the last minute before it was going down. First time in my life I was able to stop an unhealthy situation, a painful, destructive, unhealthy situation before it happened. Pretty proud of myself for that. But don't all applause at once. Other things you can do to avoid these situations. Talking to friends. Right? They've got this third party looking. You can talk to them about it and you can say, hey, am I being crazy right here or is something else going on? And even more important, listen to your friends. When your friend says, I don't like that person, listen to them. My dear God, you don't want to. How dare they speak negatively about the love of your life, right? Do your best. Listen to your friends. Practicing good communication. When you're getting into those situations and you want to put your best self forward and there's things that you're maybe wanting to hide, right? Honesty, practicing honesty. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it sucks, but man, the benefits are big. Now that's not saying oversharing either. That's another issue that people can run into. They just spill everything. Oh my God, I love this person. I want them to know everything ever about me. That's not healthy either. Healthy relationships, healthy friendships, there's a gradual getting to know, getting to trust, opening up, feeling safe, building things slowly over time, right? That philia. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the video. If you like what you hear and you'd like to work directly with me, I'd love to work with you and help out. If you want to do so, simply check out the link below this video, follow the instructions from there. Thanks again for watching and enjoy the rest of the speech. Right, you don't dump everything. So healthy communication. Once again, you ever want to know what that looks like? Think about your best friend. How do you talk to them? Right? People always, I got to go back to it because these breakups happen and they always say the same thing. You always say the same thing. Well, we'll still be friends. Well, we'll still be friends. Which is ridiculous because you were never friends to begin with. Like that person was not your, yeah, you spent 24/7. Yeah, you're enjoying all the good chemicals that you're feeling from this person, but you don't talk to this person the way you talk to your actual friends, right? You never had that actual connection. But it's important. It's so, so important to have that philia, right? If you don't have that foundation of philia underneath it, your relationship will not last. It will never last. I guarantee it. You want to know? Here's a statistic. You can look this up any way you want to, right? What relationships have the highest chance of staying together? By a long shot. It's not even close. It's something like 90% to everything else. An insanely high percentage of chance of success, right? Any guesses? What kind of relationships have the highest percentage chance of success? I'll just tell you. It's relationships that start out as friendships. Far and away. And guys are like, oh man, I got friend zone. You never get out of the friend zone. Far and away, the most successful relationships start as friendship. When you start, I would argue that it's much easier to take a friend relationship where you know the person inside and out, you've loved spending time with it, and develop that eros with that person to move to an agape, than it is to start with an eros. Go through all that shit, go through the fantasy, go through the having trouble communicating, going through all that, then developing a philia from that, then moving that towards agape. I say it's a lot easier to start in the middle. Once again, easier said than done, because we're still human beings. We still have like these crazy feelings. We still have these drugs in our brain, right? But just to close out this point on friendship, right? This point on developing love. In the East, the Far East, as they say, there is an expression that goes something along the lines of, in the West, people marry who they fall in love with. In the East, people choose to love who they marry. Right? Now, say what you will about arranged marriages. Right? I'm not saying that there's not problems with them. Not what I'm saying whatsoever. Right? However, a good friend of mine from college got married. He's from India. Got married a couple years ago. And, you know, when we were in college, I would tease him, oh yeah, arranged marriage, haha, because I was young and dumb. But I went to this man's wedding, and I got to know the process by which he found his wife. Actually pretty awesome, right? He had his family, he had their respective families, just kind of talking, knowing each other. His family would pick a bunch of different possibilities for him, right? And then he'd go on dates with all these different possibilities until he found someone that he felt some attraction to and he felt some chemistry with, right? But the thing about this is these people have already been pre-screened, right? He's not like, oh, I think this person's great, even though you're emotionally compromised and you're not thinking clearly. Like, he's had much more unemotionally compromised people that care about him, who know him, taking care of like those deeper important things up front. So when he like says, oh, I'm attracted to this person, he doesn't have to worry about the rest of it. It's already taken care of. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal whatsoever. And they're such a good match. I mean, like, he's more quiet and reserved and shy. She's more outgoing and like fearless and aggressive. Like, they're such a great match. Like Yenta really did her job well on that one. And so, but once again, it's this idea of we're going to, like, this is a person that, man, we fit together so well. This is a person that, like, I could see myself spending the rest of my life with, right? And we're going to develop, we're going to work on the sexual stuff. Pretty sure that's what the Kama Sutra and stuff is for. Please, like, don't be mad if I completely butchered my understanding of that. And then from there, it's much easier to move into that agape, that deep, amazing partnership, right? And that's not to say that you can't enjoy the eroses along the way, but take them for what they are, right? Remember the kind of loves that are truly important, the kind of love that truly last. And what we'd really be working for, we'd be really working towards, and how you might better achieve that. So, in closing again, right, I could say, ideally, you start out as friends and then you work on everything else, but we're human beings. I'm going to date people that I just have this, this chemical rush with. We all are going to, right? It's almost like the universe is playing like a grand experiment. Like, can we give these creatures this crazy rush, this most insane drug in the world, but then also see if they can develop this deeper spiritual love along the way? I mean, it's a pretty entertaining reality show if you're watching. Like, how the hell are we supposed to do this? Honestly, right? Don't ask me. We're trying our best though, all right? So you're not going to be perfect, right? But have that awareness. Learn, because there are serious consequences, right, to getting this wrong. We've all been through those painful, destructive breakups. Some are a lot worse than others. You've signed legal papers with that person. It's even harder, especially for guys. We know divorce courts are not kind to us. Bring in children, whole nother world. These are serious, serious decisions that you're making, and I want to make sure I emphasize that you're making them seriously, all right, with the intent that they deserve. But at the same time, I don't want you to be afraid of getting out there, right? I don't want you to be afraid, because actually the most remarkable thing about me really looking at this falling in love thing, looking at this Eros, is that it made me more fearless, I guess you could say, when it came to dating, right? Because before I was like so worried that I was going to make that same mistake again. I don't even want to get into another relationship because I know it's going to end up, right? That doubt, that despair. But now, all of a sudden, I've got to say, since I've been taking this new approach and looking at this in a new way, my dating life has been much more enjoyable than probably at any point in my life. A lot less hectic, a lot more relaxed, but a lot more enjoyable as well. So once again, I hope that I could spare you some of the experiences that I've been through. I hope that this talk today has given you at least one thing that in the next situation you face, the next romantic situation you face, you're going to be able to make a little bit smarter of a decision. If I could leave you with that, I'll be happy. Thank you, guys. Questions? Don't be shy. You got me all weekend too, but.
Questions, guys? I got a question. Hey Nick, I got a quick question for you. One thing I've noticed in relationships is that at the beginning of a relationship, we don't have an idea of what the cost of the relationship is going to be to us personally. Do you think that really affects how likely we are to be tricked by the brain's chemicals?
The cost of the relationship.
Right. As you get to know someone, you bring them into your life. There's a cost that incurs. They have habits, they have things that are going to directly affect the way you live your life. So there's a cost, and that's over the long term. But we don't know that up front, and so we get into a relationship. I mean, have you, in your relationships, have you seen that affect how easy it is to be susceptible?
Sure. Yet another thing that we ignore when those chemicals are rushing our brain. We don't think about, we don't care, right? But then we have those experiences, we learn, we internalize that new information that we've gained, and it can make us a little more wary in dating in the future, moving forward and dating somebody new, because we now know, we have this greater knowledge, we have this wisdom of, oh, well, there's these extra costs involved, right? And I think I want to go back to, which is why putting this stuff in perspective, slowing things down, realizing what it is with this person, not rushing into a commitment, taking your time, getting to know them so you're not overcommitting to somebody you barely know, right? Making sure you're really doing that. That's going to help you greatly avoid some of those other costs. Because if you see those things starting to creep in, you can walk away, or you can say, I'd like to change how this relationship is working because it's not really working for me right now because the costs are outweighing the benefits, right? Or I could easily see how that would be the case. So yes, that'll still happen. Once again, we're always going to be emotionally compromised in those situations. By having that awareness, by taking some of these steps, you can greatly reduce just your cost in the overall situation. Make smarter decisions for yourself. Make sense?
Hey Nick, I have a question in regards to guys who are really analytical and have really self-critical minds, either because of their education or just the way their mind's wired. Kind of always being in your head as far as before getting into a relationship, or even in the dating scene, or even when you're in in a relationship. What's your best advice for guys like that? Great question, and very personal for me because I have, throughout my entire life, have suffered from a fair deal of anxiety. Anxiety is definitely something that I've dealt with. And so this, especially feeling it when it comes to intimacy, especially feeling it in those, brain starts racing, you start overthinking, you start freaking out about nothing, right? Great question. So I found for me, there's two cures for anxiety. Two cures for anxiety: exercise and meditation. Exercise especially. Exercise is like amazing for anxiety, right? And the thing is,
The crappy thing is when we start getting those relationships, when the butterflies are spinning, we tend to put exercise on the back burner. We tend to start slacking. We want to spend every second with this person. We're not spending as much time at the gym anymore. We're sleeping in and grabbing brunch, right? Because it's awesome. But you're not doing those things that you need even more now. You need that even more now. You're bringing in more stress. You're bringing in more potential for anxiety. You need to double down on your exercise and meditation, right? Like, I know if I'm facing some stressful stuff, like that's always my biggest problem with exercise. I'll get really into it, I'll do it, I'll feel amazing, and it's like I don't have an anxiety anymore. I don't even need motivation that was driving me. When I'm feeling anxious, man, I can kill some weights, right? I can sprint like a madman, right? But if I'm feeling good, I have no motivation for that whatsoever. So then I need to find a new challenge. I need to find something that will raise my anxiety. So I got an excuse to go back to the gym now. I've got more anxiety to burn. Anxiety and, of course, meditation. I was doing it right out in the hallway before this speech because I was nervous, as always, before one of these speeches. Just feeling the feelings in your body as much as possible. Usually when we have thoughts spinning through our brains that are out of control, it's because there's feelings in our body that we'd rather not face. We'd rather not feel, embrace. So we jump into our head as an avoidance mechanism. Exercise, meditation. Answer your question? Cool.
Hi, Nick.
Hey.
Longtime fan, first time question. So you go through that breakup. It's the worst thing in the world. You basically don't throw yourself off a cliff, which is a huge thing. How do you help yourself and how do you help your students get back on the horse without doing that whole, geez, the world is, I'm not worth it.
Oh my
sucks.
gosh. Like I said, I could deliver a speech just on this topic. I'll give you the short, I'll give you the condensed answer right now. Number one, it's okay to go through that crappy period. It's okay to go through that, like just the world sucks and I want to die in my whole thing. You can do that. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It's part of the process more often than not. But just know that you're not moving forward. You're just kind of dwelling in the same shit and things aren't going to get any better until you leave that place, one. Next, and I do this too, I grab a copy of my book. I am not just saying that to promote. You obviously all have a copy right now, but I go back to the same, like, fortunately I'm Nick Sparks. Fortunately I have like a body of literature that I can turn to and say, even though I'm like messed up in the head, even though I'm not putting my best foot forward, even though I'm emotionally just all over the place, I have a guide in front of me that I can follow step by step. And I apply it. I go and I read my book and I apply like the exact same things, the things that I know are my own weaknesses because I've already diagnosed and I know where I fall short when I'm getting emotionally wonky. I know to focus on those. Get myself out there, connecting with people, right? More exercise, more connections. You know, the same old healthy stuff that we've heard a million times over. More meditation, more exercise, start new hobbies, learn new skills, meet more people, make new friends. Same old advice you've heard a million times, but yeah, doing it. And like I said, I'm fortunate because I've been through this so many times. I've helped a lot of guys go through it, so I've got a little bit more firepower than most guys do. I've done it so many times, now I know. Before I'd be like, am I ever going to feel good again? Now it's like, yeah, I'll be fine. It helps a lot. Does that answer more or less?
So Nick, earlier in your speech you used the word pattern. And we're talking about relationships here. So what's like the general pattern of relationships that you've seen in your life and in other people's lives? What's like the cycle?
You were here for the hand thing, right?
That was the pattern.
That was the pattern.
Yeah. Okay.
Fall in love, roses, things start to get crappy, animosity builds, crappy breakup, rock bottom, claw your way back up. I'm going to do things different this time. She's not like the last one. Repeat pattern.
Thanks, Nick. That was an amazing speech. The one thing that I've seen happen, I've fallen into this a lot, and especially when you get to a point where you're meeting a lot of women you really like, you're traveling, you meet that girl, you have that crazy arrows as you call it, but you don't know where you're going, you don't know where she's going, And there's that fear where if you don't kind of move it along quickly, it'll just be you missed out on that. What's that? Oh, you missed out on that, opportunity to have something. And so there's that need to kind of rush into it. You can't really do the let's slow it down and be friends. And then the second you leave, there's going to be 900 other guys with amazing resumes knocking on the door. I'm curious if you have any sort of advice as to, what do you do?
Well, that's what's great about those experiences. Those are the best Eroses in the world. You want a perfect example of how you can thoroughly enjoy an Eros experience, an experience of the dopamine, adrenaline, falling in love. It's when you're traveling. Or when she's traveling, right? It's when you both, I've more experiences of, man, I felt that connection, I felt that falling in love, when I'm traveling or when she was traveling, right? I've had guys that it becomes a problem because they will only like people. They will only develop those kinds of feelings for people in those situations, right? And why? Because it's easier. You don't have to, where's this going to go? You don't have all the fear of worrying about all those costs, all those pitfalls, all that hurt. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can simply just enjoy it for the pure, simple drug that it is, and then you part and never do anything again. So yeah, that's awesome. In those situations, you don't have to worry about slowing down. In those situations, most of the traps that our brain really screws us with, that messes up this experience for us, aren't really present. So those are one of the few times when you can actually enjoy it kind of in its natural form without our brain screwing us over too much. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Good memories.
Okay, I have a question, Nick. Okay, great speech, by the way. I just wanted to know if you had a method for navigating situations somewhat like mine. In my case, I'm 28. I kind of know where I'm going in my life and what my goals are, and I have a plan set up to get there. My girlfriend, she's 23, doesn't quite know. I can't quite see what her potential is because she doesn't even really know what she wants to do with herself. I know she's a good person, but how do I quickly determine someone's potential before I let it get to the point where, hey, I've been with you I don't want to get to the point where I've been with her 2 years and I'm just afraid to hurt her, So
I've got this 5-question quiz that'll tell you immediately what her future, but no. That's a great question. It's a great question. You have no idea. That's why it's important not to rush into these decisions. Glad you brought this up because I had a story I forgot to tell. I had a friend in New York getting engaged, about to get married. Him and his girlfriend were dating for 8 years. 8 years. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that's way too long. So a lot of people would ask him, why did you wait so long? The answer was always the same, because I only wanted to do it once. Great answer. Can't argue with that one. Right? You have no idea who this person's going to be. That's why you don't rush into commitment. That's why the best relationships develop over a long period of time. That's why the most successful relationships, by a long shot, start as friendships. So you know your best friends, who you've had forever, who you're going to be friends forever. Are you worried about where he's going to go with his life or what his potential is going to be? No, because you know this dude inside and out because you've known him for so long. You know that, yeah, he might do stupid shit sometimes, but it's not so bad. His faults aren't so bad that I'm not going to love the guy, right? So that's how it is with I'm going to say with an agape-style partner. Yeah, of course they're not perfect, but I know this person inside and out. Right? I know what their faults are, I know what their strengths are, and it's something that is a good fit for me. So you're not going to know. Spend another decade with her, you might have a pretty good idea at that point. No problem.
So Nick, this speech is a little bit different from some of your last 21 convention speeches. It doesn't end with like a man, so it's a little bit less about...
Thought about how to have a relationship like a man, but it's time to get off that train. Time to get off that train.
So my question is, in the past 5 years or so, how have you seen the place of yourself change in relationships?
Good question. Got a lot more gray hairs now. Feel like I've earned them. So, that's a good question. So myself, so that makes me think of is it's been around, rumored around the internet. I'd taken quite a while off coaching. I think about 3 years off. I still did it a little bit here and there, but I took about 3 years off coaching. And the reason why, or the main reason why, is it no longer had the same kind of passion for it, for me, in it, right? I had gotten into this industry, I've said this before, mainly because of my own insecurities, because of my own questions, because of my own desperate need for validation, right? And so this whole journey for me in this industry has been about figuring that out for myself. Whenever I'd coach a guy and I'd see he was doing this thing, I could reflect it. Oh, I see when I do that thing, but I couldn't see it in myself, right? But then about 3 years ago, and for a little while before that, it just got to the kind of point where I no longer had that desire. I had those questions answered. I had that part of myself, those insecurities kind of taken care of. I got older. And it no longer presented the same draw, the same appeal for me that it once did. So I was kind of, moving away from that. I was kind of tired. I was overworked. I was burnt out from that. And so I kind of started thinking, well, what am I going to do now? Where do I go now? But my brain already knew. Like, my brain already chose this profession long before I knew I was going to be doing it. My brain had this passion, had these questions, had this curiosity, had these insecurities. Right? I knew what I was going to do. My brain was already hard at work on this speech that I was giving right now. I knew that I had gotten this dating thing mostly under control, but there's still this huge glaring hole in my life that I need to look at, and I need to figure out. And so that's for the past 3 years, my attention's really turned more towards that and really geared towards more of that. I'm right now in the best place I've ever been with it as well. And now I'm refreshed and I can't wait to get back into coaching and dating because I've kind of made peace with all that as well. So yes, I don't know if that answers your question. I was probably just rambling. I'm going to go with rambling, but hope that was helpful somehow.
What would you say is the biggest thing that you learned on this journey of self-exploration last 3 years and taking some time off?
Biggest thing I learned. I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get back to me. Let's keep talking. We're gonna have some cigars.
Yeah. Oh, I'll join in on that. First time for everything. So Nick, if you can comment on this, we talked on the phone months ago when I went through a pretty serious breakup, and one of the things you said to me that really stood out, and I think you mentioned it briefly in this talk, but just for a second, or if you can elaborate on it, was that oftentimes the more attractive physically a woman is, that can sometimes be a signal for her compensating for a lack of inner beauty or inner virtue or something like that. So can you speak to that a little bit and what that means?
Sure. I did not include this in my speech because you get in trouble when you make blanket statements. Anthony hasn't learned that one yet, but you do get in trouble when you make blanket statements. But I would say, if I had to guess, this is not scientific evidence to back up or anything, but if I had to propose a theory, I would say that the individuals, both men and women, and I can relate to this myself, who spend the most time and energy on their overall attractiveness, both physical and personality, the people that prioritize that and put the most amount of work into that, probably have some issues with validation for themselves and needing constant validation from other people. I could just be projecting my own past experiences here, but I think there might be some truth to it. If you're developing that part of yourself far and away over other parts of yourself, there might be some truth. So something to watch out for. I definitely used to chase around the people that put the most amount of time into their attractiveness, both physical and personality-wise. And if a girl is charming, but I've learned to start maybe valuing different things and not valuing that as much for sure. Thanks for asking.
I got a question. You said you learned to be more aware, learn to slow down, and to be honest. I mean, doesn't that kind of limit the amount of people that you can actually share that with? I mean, most people aren't really being honest with themselves, Like if, for example, I'm a very honest and straightforward person, but I've been told that's very not abrasive, but very direct. So at times I feel like it's kind of hard to be direct. Is it something like you have to build like a bond first and
well, I mean, two different ways I'm going to answer that question. One, are you being direct, or are you just word vomiting because you're anxious and nervous, and that's a defense mechanism you have to kind of keep yourself safe and keep other people at bay? It could be either one of those. I'm not saying it's one or the other. I don't know you well enough yet, but it could be either one of those, something to think about, right? The other thing that could possibly be, though, is that directness, right? We're a social species. Human beings are a social species. So it is important that we learn how to interact in harmony and in cohesion with other members of the group. And so I think that being honest and being direct is a great thing, but also learning how to tailor that message for greater harmony within the group is another important skill to develop as well. Yeah. Cool. George, just firing them at me today.
All right. This one, I'll go with the softball on this one. What other relationship that you have not been in do you admire? Someone else's relationship?
Oh gosh, there's tons of examples. I'm sitting right next to you. Did you set that up just because he was sitting right there? Steve and Maria have an absolutely amazing relationship. You talk about best friends. You want to talk about honesty. You want to talk about real connection. Talk about compliments for each other. They're great. They're great. Who else? Kanye and Kim out now. There's so many friends that I have, and that's really what gives. If I didn't have all these friends that have had just these amazing, healthy relationships, I would have no hope for it whatsoever. But I've seen enough really great examples that gives you something to look forward to. And I wanted to conclude my speech off as this, but I really didn't. I firmly believe that those amazing partnerships, those deep spiritual partnerships, are one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, catalysts or forces for positive change in our universe. You want to talk about, you can go protest to try to get them to take down some plant, or you could form a healthy relationship which is going to affect everyone around you and affect children who are then going to go off and have a huge effect on the world. It's mind-blowing, the fact that these relationships can have. And so, yeah, I've been really fortunate to see a lot of them.
All right. One more question. Let's wrap it up. Let's give it up for Nick Sparks.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the speech. If you liked what you saw, please do your part to support the 21 convention. Like them on Facebook. Donations are always accepted. Tell your friends. Get the word out there because there's really amazing things going on. Also, you can always check me out at sparksofattraction.com. Again, thank you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.